morning, Mr. Pretorius. Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Chair.
Are we ready?
Yes, we are, Chair.
Okay, let's continue. Mr. Mokoena, you are still under the oath you took yesterday. Okay, all right.
Good morning, Mr. Mokoena.
Morning, Advocate.
You have your statement before you. That's FS12, bundle FS12. And we're at page 349.
I'm sorry, I've got it now.
You will recall yesterday, Mr. Mokoena, you gave evidence that at a stage and on the instructions of the National Minister, the payments by way of advance payments to suppliers stopped.
Correct, Chair.
Do you know what the MEC, Mr. Zwane's attitude was to that direction of the Minister, the National Minister?
While in the meeting, he was in agreement. I think he was saying that we're going to implement our undertaking, that we're going to stop.
Well, would you look at paragraph 29, please, of your affidavit?
But when we got home...
All right, sorry, I interrupted you. Yes, when
we got home, he came back to me and said, no, we're continuing, we're not going to stop, and that we'll continue with our project up until the end of the financial year.
Because overnight, the legal team looked at the Open Waters report.
Okay.
You know that Open Waters was an entity that was briefed to investigate by way of forensic audit the prepayments issue.
I heard about that, Chair.
Their report says that payments did in fact continue by way of the session payments. Do you know anything about that?
Did or didn't?
Did.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't know about that. Because according to me and my recollection is that when we said we were coming home to stop, we stopped that month end of February, because the meeting with the minister was in February. Thank you, Chair.
All right, I will look at the detail of that and see what evidence there is in that report, and we'll put it before the Chair. But you say you know nothing about that?
I know nothing about that.
If you would go, please, to paragraph 34.
Before that, how long after that meeting involving the national minister was it when Mr. Zwane came back to you and said the advance payments should continue?
It was about 14 days after.
Sorry?
About 14 days after.
About 2 weeks after?
About 2 weeks after we came from the meeting with the minister.
Yes.
Yes.
Did he explain to you why he was changing his mind now about this issue?
I asked him that as we took an undertaking, why now are you changing? He said that we still need to ensure that we spend within that time up until the end of the financial year. Whatever we can spend, let us spend. So he was focusing more on spending and not on the commitment that we have made to the minister. Therefore, I thought that that was incorrect to undermine what you have agreed on, and then you come back without even informing the parties that you are with that you are changing your stand now. Because changing a stance for me would not have been a good principle.
But that same issue that he was raising, that there was a need to spend money, that was something that he knew, and I'm almost sure he had initially expressed at the meeting with the national minister. Namely, that he thought there was a need for the payments to continue. He had raised that issue with the national minister at the meeting, but ultimately the national minister wanted to hear nothing of it.
Correct, Chair.
And your meeting with him when he said that the payments should continue, how did it end?
It ended, I would say, on a sour note, because
Yes.
I told him that I won't sign anything beyond that, which
Yeah.
must advance money to material suppliers anymore after the end of February 2011.
Yes. Did he indicate what he was going to do next now that you were not prepared to sign further payments?
Not that I can recall, Chairperson.
Yes. At that stage, were you no longer scared that he would say you must submit your resignation letter?
At that stage, he was not talking about the resignation letter anymore.
He was not talking about it.
Yes, since after the meeting with the national minister,
Yes.
he never spoke about that resignation letter anymore.
Yes, but he was unhappy that you were not prepared to authorize further payments.
Correct, Chair.
Okay, Mr. Pretorius.
Thank you, Chair. In paragraph 29, if we could just go back, you put on record some of your suspicions, but as with former evidence that you gave yesterday, I understand you have no facts really to back up your suspicions in paragraph 29.
That's correct.
All right, let's go to paragraph 34. When you left as head of department, you were replaced, it's common cause, by Mr. Mukesi.
That's correct, Chair.
And were you involved then in the preparation for the disciplinary hearings that we've been told about?
No, I was not, Chairperson.
Did you testify at those disciplinary hearings?
Yes, I did.
Right. Do you know why certain people were selected for discipline and others weren't? First of all, who did the selection?
I cannot answer confidently because I was not working in the department at that stage. Therefore, I don't know who is the person who selected the persons that were supposed to go hearing or disciplinary hearing.
Right, who was ultimately disciplined and dismissed?
I think there were 6 former colleagues. It was Mamiki Mukhele, Ntate Keiza Matlachwa, Ntate Kabelo Koloi, Ntate Loiso Ndenze, Ntate Koni Twala, and me Nogu Fama Khautse, who is now deceased.
At the time of the disciplinary hearings, where were you employed?
At that time, I was employed at Mangaung Metropolitan Municipality as the head of department for human settlements.
Right. Do you know a person, Rochelle Else?
Yes, I do, Chair.
Did she construct houses?
That's correct.
And did she get contracts from the department, Free State?
That's correct.
Did the MEC, Mr. Zwane, ever tell you anything about that particular contractor and her relationship with the Premier?
Correct, Chair.
What did he tell you?
He told me that we must ensure that this contractor gets contract to build houses in Kronstadt, because that is the instruction from the Premier. And when the projects had started running, when time comes for the claims to be submitted, he would come and tell me that we must expedite the claims, because the Premier wants those claims to be expedited.
So would that be Mr. Zwane coming to you when claims had been lodged? He would come and say, you must expedite Ms. Rochelle L's claims because the Premier has said they should be expedited.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay.
The narrative, Mr. Mokoena, that you've put before the Chair yesterday and today involves a member of the Provincial Cabinet, involves the National Treasury and the National Minister, and you've spoken about several meetings at which senior officials were in attendance. You'd have to say yes a bit louder.
Correct, Chair.
It's difficult to conceive then that all this happened within a bubble and no one else within the province knew what was happening. You understand the point I'm making?
No, Chair.
No. The members of the Provincial Cabinet,
Yes.
it's probable, just on the face of it, and I'd like to explore this with you, that other people in the Cabinet would have known as well.
That's correct. Now I understand.
All right. What do you know about that?
I think in the meeting of the EXCO, it was raised by the National Treasury in one meeting that this advanced material scheme is not correct, and that there's money already that has been deposited from our account into the accounts of the material suppliers. And that was in a meeting of the EXCO, and it was raised.
EXCO, what body is that?
EXCO is an executive cabinet meeting of the MECs with the Premier.
Right. So as far as you are aware, the EXCO at least would have known about the issues to which you've testified, at least at a general level.
Correct, Chair.
And they would have known about the financial implications that were raised by National Treasury.
Correct, Chair.
And that matter was discussed.
That matter was discussed.
Were you at that meeting?
I was at that meeting.
What was the Premier's attitude to what was happening?
She didn't come up with, what can I say, a conclusive, detailed decision about what to do about it, about that item, as it was discussed. And I think the person came specially for that from the National Department of Treasury to come and inform the EXCO in that meeting on that day.
Right. Who was on the EXCO? Can you just give us as much as you can remember?
I think all members of EXCO were there, all MECs, all heads of department, I think, were there. CFOs as well, yes.
And who was the Premier?
And the Premier was there, was chairing the meeting.
Yes, who was the Premier?
The Premier was Mr. Mahashule.
Now, there would obviously be minutes of EXCO meetings, sure.
That's correct.
Would this matter have been reported on Cabinet, at Cabinet level, Provincial Cabinet level?
This matter should have been reported there, I agree.
And there would be minutes of those meetings?
There would also be minutes of those meetings as well.
Would you, in your capacity as HOD, have submitted reports to the MEC, to EXCO, or to the Provincial Cabinet?
Yes, if there were items that we wanted to be discussed and agreed upon, we would write our own memo, submit to the EXCO as a report or as a memo, and then it will be discussed at that level and be approved or disapproved at that level.
Did you write reports at this time?
On this matter, no.
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 Any reason for that? Important matter.
An important matter, yes. But it was, as it was raised by the National Department in the meeting, it ended up there. They didn't pursue it.
You say there was no need for you to do so.
I think it didn't come to my mind that I should write a report about
Well,
it.
when this matter came up before the EXCO that you've now described, at that meeting that you've now described, was there no instruction that came from EXCO sort this matter out as a matter of urgency?
I can't recollect any decision taken which was tasking me to make a report on that matter.
Anyways, I understand that all reports made to EXCO, the Cabinet, the Premier, minutes of all relevant meetings will be a matter of record, and those records should be at the offices of the province in Bloemfontein.
That's correct, Chair.
Are there any other documents that you can think of that would record the events of 2010, 2011 in relation to the evidence you've given?
I think the most confidential document for me that I think could help us with information is the report from the BAS, the system that captures and records all the transactions of all the material that we have supplied. How much did we pay out, for which contractor, when? And it must also show the bank account of where the money went. So that's why I was proposing that if we could get from the National Treasury the record of December 2010 and December 2011, surely from there we can pick up all the contractors and all the material suppliers that we've supplied.
And this information is BAS, B-A-S.
This information comes out of the BAS system.
That's the financial system where all payments are recorded,
That's correct.
including of provinces.
That's correct.
And it resides with National Treasury, you say?
And it resides with National Treasury, Chair.
After Mr. Zwane had proposed his solution, in quotes, for the problem that the department was facing in relation to this matter, namely failing to spend the money that it had been allocated for low-cost housing. Do you know whether there was a report that a written report that he may have submitted to the Executive Council, the Provincial Cabinet, or to the Premier, which would have set out what the solution is and what was going to be done, whether it's a report or a memo? Do you know whether there was such a document?
Chair, as far as I can recall, no document was written in that direction.
You can't
to
remember.
the Cabinet.
Okay.
Yes, Chair.
We've heard of the, quote, solution, unquote, that was proposed and implemented in order to ensure that money was spent before the year end and the budgetary allocation was not lost. And principally, we've heard about the prepayments made to suppliers.
That's correct.
And we've also heard about money paid to suppliers for onward transmission to the contractors. Do you know about that, the so-called bridging finance payments?
No, I'm not aware of that one. Bridging finance.
Well, there is evidence, and it's been confirmed, that some of the money paid to suppliers was transmitted onwards, sometimes in cash, to contractors. Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't know anything of that.
You're sure?
Because for me, the money that was sent into the accounts of the material suppliers, it was for materials and could not be for bridging finance.
No, of course it could not, but notwithstanding that, money was nevertheless paid.
Then it was out of my control, then it was not brought to my attention.
All right, but those findings are on record and they've been confirmed. Do you know anything, do you understand what a right of retention is?
No, I don't understand.
All right, so in the contract that is entered into between the department and the contractor, the builder, the department negotiates for and contracts for a right of retention. In other words, it withholds money that ought to be paid to the contractor as a type of insurance policy, so that if there are any defects, the work is not complete or the work is not properly done, there is money that can be drawn on to meet the financial deficit that arises. Do you know anything about that?
That is a retention.
Right of retention, yes.
Yes.
You know that?
Yes. I know.
That type of clause in a building contract.
Correctly.
What happened, and this was found to be the case in the disciplinary inquiry, is that these rights of retention were abandoned. And the retention money was paid over to the contractors, thus ensuring even more money was paid out even more quickly. Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't know about that.
So that would have happened without your knowledge.
If the retention is paid before the product is completed,
Yes.
I think that would have been incorrect. I would not have agreed to that.
Or even paid before the time came for payment, before defects in the building would appear, and before the time for payment of the retention money over had occurred. In other words, a premature payment to ensure that money was spent.
No. I think even in the recovery plan, we didn't have something like that to say that now, because we are literally pushing to spend, we now have to spend even the money that's supposed to be retained for the project. I think that could not have been agreed upon.
Well, it might not have been agreed upon, but there's evidence in the disciplinary inquiry that it
That it
actually
happened.
happened.
I have no knowledge of that, Chairperson.
You've given evidence about the MEC's involvement in the selection of contractors. Did the same principle apply to the selection of suppliers?
No, not on suppliers. It was only on contractors, Chairperson.
Do you know of the war room meetings?
Yes, I know.
Did you attend the war room meetings?
I did attend some of them.
What were these meetings?
These meetings were like project office, where we gather information about our projects, at what stage are we paid different projects, and from there we would record that and then make follow-up where we think that there are problems that need us to unlock, then we'd go there and unlock. Say, for instance, there's a problem at the municipality level, which blocks this project from moving, then we'll task one person to go to that municipality and talk to them so that that problem can be solved.
Did these war room meetings monitor the implementation of the early payment or advance payment scheme?
No, it is before that.
Sorry?
The war room came before that.
Yes, but at a stage, the war room meetings also monitored the early payment scheme
Correct, at a later stage.
at a later stage. Could bear with me, Chair. I'd just like to get a reference to put to. You've given evidence about Mr. Tsometsi.
That's correct, yeah.
He certainly, on the evidence that we've heard, played a role in the devising and implementation of the scheme, the early payment scheme, the advance payment scheme.
That is correct, yeah.
Do you know why he wasn't disciplined?
No, I do not know why, because I was now working at the municipality, Mangaung. I was not in the department any longer.
Did you ever report to anybody other than Mr. Zwane about your dissatisfaction and opposition to the advance payment scheme?
Chair, no.
You didn't think it apposite to report to the Premier in that regard?
I was still coming there.
All right.
No, I didn't talk to anyone else, because I thought, what came to my mind was that I should talk to someone who was going to advise me. And then I thought that looking at the situation, the Premier would be a better person, because the Premier is also a boss to my MEC. Then that's the person I tried to get hold of. Same day, when we came from the meeting in the office of the MEC. After that meeting, when I realized that we're at loggerheads with my MEC, then I went down to the office of the Premier just to check whether it was possible for me to meet him. And it was unfortunately not possible. And then after hours, same day, I went again, stood in the queue there waiting for him. Up until 9 in the evening, the queue was still long. Then they said, we must come the following day. So it continued days after days, a week, second week, the third week, then I stopped following it, pursuing it. Because I thought that was the relevant person to help me out of this.
Chair, I'm just dealing with notes given to me by the legal team, if you'd bear with me.
That's fine. So, Mr. Mkwena, the housing units that were meant to be built in 2010-2011 financial year, is the position that to date they have not been built, or have they since been built after you had left?
I am not sure, Chair, because what we tried to do was to agree with nature to come and help us so that we could turn as much as possible from the amount of money and the materials into units. And when I left, nature was still there. I was still working very close with our colleagues, especially in the war room. So my understanding is that by the time I left, some of those units could have been built, but not most.
If you would look, please, at para 59 on page 113 of bundle FS14. That's a different bundle.
Not this one.
Yeah, not that one. Bundle FS14 behind you.
Number?
Page 113. You look at paragraph 59, please.
59.
Yes.
Okay.
Just take a minute to read it, please. In essence, what is said in the affidavit of Mr. Mkesi in the review application is that Mr. Makachwa returned to Bloemfontein having attended a meeting, advised the then head of department, that's yourself, that the department, your department, had been warned not to implement the expenditure recovery plan. However, Mr. Mokoena instructed Mr. Makachwa to proceed with the plan, and that was found in the disciplinary hearing. What do you say about that?
I think that's not correct. Why I'm saying it's not correct is because when Mr. Matlacho went to that meeting, he went on our behalf. Already at that stage, he knew already that the MEC had already said he will not move away or he will not refrain from implementing this project. So here, my understanding is that it looks like I'm the one who's pushing for this project to continue. It's not the MEC. So I disagree with it.
Right, he does explain over the page, on page 114, that the instruction that he's referring to is the memorandum prepared by Mr. Tsometsi and signed by him and yourself on the 25th of November. You've given evidence about the circumstances of that memorandum.
Thank you, Chair. I think this narrative is a narrative I had also when I was witnessing at the hearing, disciplinary hearing. It's an incorrect narrative. It takes the logic and puts it on its head. We know that the origin of this scheme started with a meeting in the MEC's office. The instruction to Mr. Tsometsi to prepare a document came from that meeting. Now, for me today to come and see a different version here, that I'm the one who instructed Mr. Tsometsi to write this internal document linked the instruction to Mr. Makachwa. I think here we're linking the things that are not linking. That's why I'm saying that the logic is standing on its head here. Thank you, Chair.
When the employees who were ultimately dismissed were first suspended, were you still in office?
No, Chair. I was out of office at that stage.
Just bear with me a moment. The findings, and you can look at FS 19 if you want to check. I'm going to read it to you anyway at page 757, just for the record. The findings of the disciplinary inquiry deal with the retention clause, non-enforcement or abandonment. And in paragraph 396 of the disciplinary findings, it reads, it refers to a paragraph of the ERP which we are looking for, but it's not to hand at the moment. It is recorded that, quote, it was decided that the retention clause be retained in the contract, but not be enforced in, should read, these projects, to ensure expenditure and cash flow for the contractor. So, in order to ensure that the contractor received money, but also to ensure that the department spent as much money as possible, that retention clause was abandoned. I just wanted to put that before you. You still don't have any knowledge of it.
I still do not have any knowledge of it, Chairperson.
Do you have anything to add to your evidence that I perhaps have not asked you and you wish to place before the chair?
From my affidavit, I think we've covered all the areas of importance that I requested that they be covered as part of my evidence.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
What would you say if somebody comes before the commission, Mr. Mokoena, and say, you have downplayed your role in this matter, and that you were a much more active role player than you seem to want everybody to believe? What would be your response to that?
Thank you, Chair. I think the first thing would be the starting point of the meeting.
And I'm talking especially with special reference to
My signing of the two
Mr.
documents.
Zwane's solution in quotes, and that you were much more active, at least maybe from a certain stage onwards, than you may be making it out to be.
Chair, I think the starting point for me would be that I disagree with that version, and that the origin of the scheme came with the MEC as advised. So if it was not him being advised elsewhere by the person and the source that he never wanted to disclose to me, then I would have said that I was actively involved. Because I'm the person who was supposed to work very close with him and advise him about human settlements issues. Because I've been in human settlements for more years than he was. That's my starting point. My second point is that when it has already been detected that we're doing wrong about this scheme, still when we come back from there, he wants us to continue. Then if I was with him, I would have said no in February to stop the scheme or implementation of the scheme. And then 3, the research that was done. It is because I'm the one who said that this scheme is bordering on illegality. Therefore, we cannot implement it. So that's why he instructed Mr. Tswameti. So it's not me who instructed Mr. Tswameti. So on those 3 key points, I still am saying that my evidence is that it looks like here I was corralled into a corner with a plan that was well orchestrated beforehand. And for me getting to that meeting, it was me getting into a trap. And I think I wasn't aware of the trap, but I realized in the meeting that everyone else was not speaking. So that quietness was quite uncomfortable for me, especially coming from the CFO who should be supporting me in the meeting. Because I'm arguing in terms of the procurement procedures. She should have come in and said, I am right, MEC, this is not possible, this is wrong, this cannot happen. But she was just quiet, sitting there. And all other colleagues were quiet. So on that note, I would therefore say that if I had power, I would have said that maybe I'm not the only person who found himself in these circumstances. I would recommend that there must be some kind of, I don't know how to put it now, administrative tool or an avenue which must be available to each and every official, each and every manager. When you are in a circumstance where I was, you are forced to do things that you think that this is illegal, then you can touch a button or you can submit your, what I would call, intervention request. If we could have something like that, I think we can save South Africa a lot of money. Because I think in municipalities also the same problem. In other departments in the province, I think the same problem. So that could help them. I think I'm just trying to think aloud now that if we could have a platform or a structure that is resident in the presidency, because I think that is the highest office, and that in that structure, we must have people with competence in terms of procurement, in terms of legal, in terms of communication, and in terms of investigations. So that if you submit your intervention request, they can respond quickly and then bring the 2 parties to validate whether it is true or not, and then they can take action at that time. But this structure must not just look at solving this one problem that I'm putting here. I think we must have at least 3 key focus areas. One, it must be to stop from the source the instructions and the writing of documents. 2, it must also look at how to professionalize the whistleblowing program. Because we have the whistleblowing program there, but it is stuck in delays in the logjam of bureaucracy. And then 3, also to ensure that we bring that close and professionalize the lifestyle audit initiative. I think if we can bring those 3 things together, that will help us a lot. And the wasteful expenditure that we are having, it will be stopped by it, because you are strangulating the fraudulent activity right from the start, where the instructions come, because the source is the instruction. Someone instruct the other person to do something that is wrong because he or she is not signing. I'm a politician, I'm not party to the procurement processes, but already upstream, you have already conditioned this project how to go. So I think that's the problem also the municipal managers are facing. So that's what I would propose, Chairperson.
You mentioned in your evidence at least 3 contractors that I think you said Mr. Zwane seemed to be very interested in. Those were the ones I think you said he would approach you and ask you to expedite their payments. Is that right?
That's correct, Chair.
Yes. As after you had left, do you know whether those contractors still exist, or is that something you don't know?
No, I'm not sure about that,
You're
Chairperson.
not sure. Okay.
Because by the time when I left the office, I didn't even take anything in my office. I left all the files and everything because
Yes.
I knew that all those files are the property of the department.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was going just across the street, stone
Yes.
throw away. If
Yeah.
they wanted me on anything, I would have come back and talked to them.
Yes. Now, Mr. Pretorius mentioned that there are indications that payments may have continued after your meeting with the MEC and the national minister. You said you don't know that because you had taken the position that there should be no further payments. You remember that?
Correct, Chiefs.
Is there a possibility that payments may have happened without your knowledge, without your authorization? Is there such a practical possibility that maybe somebody else, other people within the department may have continued to authorize payments without your knowledge?
It's possible, Chair.
It is possible.
Possible.
The payment processes did not always have to come to your attention.
That's true.
But would you not have told everybody concerned after your meeting with the national minister and the MEC that there should be no further advance payments anymore?
We had a meeting, that's where I announced that as we come back from the minister, the feedback is that we must stop with this project.
Yes.
We must not do this again. No other new transactions must go to suppliers, no new contracts.
Yes.
Yes.
So if anybody authorized them after that, then they would have done so knowing that you had issued an instruction to say there should be no further payments.
That's correct, Chair.
Now, are you able to say that the MEC, Mr. Zwane, definitely knew that his scheme was illegal, or was requiring the department to do something illegal? Or is the position that you believe that in his view was that it was legal? Or are you able to say he may have said it was illegal, but he knew it was illegal? Well, what is your position?
My position is that he knew that it was illegal.
Yes.
Because the first time when he mentioned it, I responded. I told him that it was illegal.
Yes.
So he tried ways to ensure that he convinces me
Yeah.
about the legality of the scheme.
Yes.
So for me, then it shows that he knew. And the mere fact that he didn't want to inform us about who is the person who advised him,
Yeah.
then that's something that he's hiding from us.
Yes.
Yes, Chief.
Did he, what were the reasons that you told him as to why his scheme was illegal? What did you say to him in terms of A, B, C, D? It's illegal because of this and this and that. Just repeat that to me.
I told him that it was legal because it was illegal. Because one, the services in government, you get a service first as a government before you pay. So this scheme is the very opposite to that. So this is illegal. And then also number two is that we do not have capacity in the department. We're still a young department. We cannot be able to run all those things, including what we were doing in the office at that stage. And then I think also finally I said in terms of the supply management from the procurement point of view, it was incorrect to come with this kind of a scheme. It will not help us at all.
Did he counter your reasons for saying his scheme was illegal with anything? In other words, did he engage your reasons to say, but your reasons for saying the scheme is illegal are not sound because of A, B, C, D?
It did not engage my content. What he engaged was the form, the outside part. He said that his advice, he was advised by the person who is knowledgeable, who's an expert now. That's why I wanted to know, who is this expert?
And he never
That's the first
disclosed.
part. And he never disclosed.
Yes.
And the second thing that he looked at then was that, because he realized that I was not moving, I was adamant. Then he said, let's do a research because we know that this is happening in other provinces.
If he comes here and says, I never said, I would never have said a scheme should be carried out that I knew to be illegal. I was the MEC, I had taken an oath to uphold the Constitution and the law. What Mr. Mokoena is saying is not true. I genuinely believed that this scheme was legal. What would you say?
Firstly, I would say that what made him to ask Ntate Musa Tswametsi to go and do a research.
And you say the document that was
the
brought
document
back
still-
did not talk to legality.
The legality still.
Yes.
Thank you,
Okay,
Chief.
all right.
Chair, arising out of these
Yeah.
questions, may I just put
Yeah.
one or two more? The evidence of Mr. Moketsi says that he had difficulty in understanding or obtaining information in regard to what had happened prior to him taking office in 2010, 2011. Did he ever ask for your cooperation?
No, Chairperson.
Did anybody actually come to you and say, please explain to us what had happened?
It's the first time today I meet anyone else to discuss this matter, today.
Really?
Since I left the office December 2011, no one has ever come to me to discuss, investigate, interview, or discuss with me this matter.
Did you give evidence at the inquiry? Were you asked to give evidence at the disciplinary inquiry?
At the disciplinary inquiry, I was a witness.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, in preparation for that, who spoke to you?
For that meeting. I was
Yes.
just told that I must come to a meeting. I was not briefed properly, I was not given documents. I was just told that I must come there and be part of the disciplinary hearings.
No one sat with you and said, look, we want to know what you know, let's go through the detail.
The secretariat, the lawyers that were running this, are the people who came to me, not the
Did they
department.
brief you beforehand?
They briefed me a day or two before the hearings.
You understand that as a head of department, you are the accounting officer and you are therefore responsible in terms of the PFMA, Public Finance Management Act, for what happens under your command.
That's correct.
And even if you do delegate, you're still accountable.
That's correct.
Now, what is puzzling about the events of 2010, 2011 in your department is that there seems to be a blurring of the lines between your role and the role of the MEC. How do you understand the distinction or the dividing line between your function and responsibility on the one hand and that of the MEC on the other? Because you've given evidence to a great extent of what would seem to be a blurring of the lines of the MEC entering onto your domain. Please share your thoughts with the Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I think mainly I felt strangulated because for me, the executive authority ends at a particular point. And most of the things that he was meddling in for me are the things or the areas of work that belongs to me as the head of the department. I think it was a deliberate ploy to unsettle me so that when he comes to me with instructions that I must take, it must be instructions that come from him, and it's me who, according to the PFMA, who is responsible. but I'm responsible for things that he is bringing into my area of work. I think he was doing this deliberately. He was aware that he was venturing into the environment which did not belong to him.
What is the environment of an MEC as opposed to your environment? What's the dividing line? Can you describe it briefly for us?
Mainly, the MEC will come with political direction. And the HOD will come with the implementation. When I talk budgets, it's only the HOD that talk budgets. When I talk supply chain management, procurement is the HOD. When I talk management of staff, is the HOD. So he was into all those areas. And I think he was doing it deliberately. And I think he was being advised from somewhere.
Finally, Mr. McQueen, you gave evidence yesterday in relation to the ERP plan, at least the slide presentation, summary of the ERP plan.
Correct.
And you spoke expressly to the chair about the cash flow projection document. You recall that cash flow projection document?
I recall it.
Would Mr. Zwane have been aware of that?
I think because it was an ERP, we would have taken him through it because we wanted him to know what is it that we are trying to achieve from the amounts of money that we have.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mkwena, for coming to give evidence. If need be, we'll ask you to come back, but thank you very much. You are excused for now.
Thanks very much, Chair. Thanks,
you.
Advocate.
We're 2 minutes to 11, but if your next witness is ready, we could start, but if you need some time.
Perhaps we should allow time for the changeover. Could we take an early, short adjournment?
Okay, all right. Shall we just make it our tea adjournment? Or shall we make it our tea adjournment already?
If you're happy with that, Chair, yes.
From your side, are you?
Yes,
Are you happy?
it'll give chance to do the handover.
Yes. Shall we say we resume at 1:15, or shall I give you more time?
20 past, would that
20
be?
past.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, all right. We'll resume at 11:20.
Thank you.
We adjourn.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The next witness is Mr. Mpikelele Kaiser Makachwa. He is legally represented. May his representative place himself on record.
Yes.
Mr. Cabello Kaloy, who has also deposed to an affidavit in these proceedings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. Do you want him to be sworn in?
Yes, please, Chair.
Okay, please administer the oath of affirmation.
Please state your full names for the record.
My name is Mpikelele Kaiser Makachwa.
Do you have any objections to taking the prescribed oath?
No.
Do you consider the oath to be binding on your conscience?
Yes.
Do you swear that the evidence will give you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing else but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Bundle FS12 at page 183. We're referring to the black numbers in the top left-hand corner of that bundle before you.
I see, Chair, my document is starting at 184.
Okay, they'll assist you.
Chair, would you just bear with us a minute? Apparently, we have yet another bundling issue to deal with.
Okay.
I did try and check some, but 20,000 pages was a bit beyond us. So that document in front of you now, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Pretorius. I've now
All right.
on page 183.
Yes, and if you go through to page 212, you will see a signature on that page.
Yes, I'm at 212.
Whose signature is that?
It's my signature.
Right. This document from page 183 to 212, is that your affidavit prepared for the commission?
Yes, Mr. Pretorius.
As far as you are aware, are the contents of this affidavit true and correct?
Yes, Chair.
Chair, the exhibit number is exhibit UU2. May that be admitted.
The affidavit of Mr. Mpikelele Kaiser Makachwa, starting at page 183, is admitted and will be marked as exhibit UU. Did you say 2? Mr.
Yes, Chair. UU2.
UU2. Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Makachwa, would you please look at paragraph 4 on page 184 of your affidavit?
Yes, I'm at page 184.
Right. And you say in that paragraph that you have read the affidavit of Mr. Mokoena. You've read the founding affidavit deposed to by Mr. Moketsi in the review application, and you've read extracts from the evidence given in the disciplinary proceedings given by Mr. Mokoena and Mr. Neville Cheney. Is that correct?
Correct, Chair.
And you refer in paragraph 5 to certain disciplinary proceedings, the result of which was that you and some of your colleagues who were employed in the Department of Human Settlements in the Free State were dismissed.
Correct.
You say in paragraph 6 that you have taken a view that your dismissal was unfair, and you refer to the contents of your affidavit.
Correct.
What is the status of your challenge to the disciplinary proceedings at the moment?
Chair, we are now at the CCMA. We have referred the matter after our dismissal in 2015, but the CCMA has not assisted us up until so far. There's been so many changes of commissioners on our case. There was a stage where the evidence bundles of the transcript were lost at their offices. Yes.
It seems a very long time that has elapsed before you actually come before and get a result from the CCMA.
Yes, Chair, it's been a long time. Normally they say justice delayed is justice denied.
Has there been, over the, 7 years, has there been no time when oral evidence was led? In other words, no oral evidence has been led at all at the CCMA?
No oral evidence has been led at all at the CCMA.
Yeah.
Perhaps
It
that's a
is-
matter that we could look into, Chair.
Yeah, it's quite long, yeah.
And certainly the circumstances giving rise to the delays, lost files and the like. In any event, you also refer in paragraph 9, well, before we go there, you refer to the Open Waters report. Have you been given an opportunity now to peruse that report?
We are denied that particular report.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
We were denied that particular report.
All right. Well, it is available. We can make it available too, should you require it.
Chair, if it is available, we'll gladly accept it and study it.
In paragraph 9, you refer to an investigation carried out by the Special Investigation Unit. That report of the SIU, you say, was never formally submitted to and adopted by Parliament. That's information that you've received.
Yeah, that's the information we received, Chair.
In any event, any information that you do require can be made available to you.
Chair will gladly like the assistance of the Commission with that particular information.
In paragraph 12, you list your qualifications. What are they?
Chair, I have a junior degree in law, BProc, and an honors degree in law, LLB, both from the University of Durban, Westville, completed in 1995. I also have an honors in regional, town and regional planning from the University of the Free State.
You were a municipal manager at the Nkwetwana municipality from 2000 to 2006, is that correct?
That's correct, Chair.
And then when were you appointed to the local government and housing department in the Free State province?
At the expiry of my contract at Nketwana, I was appointed at the Free State the Local Government and Housing Department in 2006 November.
What position did you occupy then?
I was a chief director in the local government branch
Of the Department of Local Government and Housing?
of the Department of Local Government and Housing, yes, Chair.
And to whom did you report?
Then I reported to Mr. Kopun Radikontsani.
And to whom did that person report?
That person reported to MEC Mafereka then.
All right. So just for the record, is it Mr. Ralikansani that you mentioned now?
Yes, Mr. Radikontsani.
That's R-A-L-I-K-A-N-T-S-A-N-E. His first name Kopung, K-O-P-U-N-G, and Mr. Joe Mafereka, M-A-F-E-R-E-K-A. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chair.
In 2009, we know that Mr. Magashule became Premier and Mr. Zwane became the MEC for Local Government and Housing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the head of departments, Human Settlements, was Mr. Mokoena.
That's correct, Chair.
The names of all the departments and positions may be confusing because there were changes over time.
That's correct. Local government and housing as a department was split into two. It was now local government and traditional affairs, and then a department of human settlement was created separately.
And you were in the human settlement side of the organogram, is that right?
I was transferred from local government to human settlement as a chief director.
The reporting structures appear at page 190 at paragraph 21. Do you see that?
Correct, Chair?
Without intending any adverse comment, you are fairly low down in that hierarchy.
Yes, Chair, there will be the HOD above me, there will be DDGs, and then there will be the CFO above me, and then we will come as chief directors just below those executives.
Yes, the only reason I make the point is that those were disciplined, who were ultimately disciplined and dismissed, were not at the top of the rankings.
Yes, correct, Chair.
Can I ask, we've just had a message from the transcriber. Unlike other witnesses, you speak very loudly and clearly. So if you could just move away from the microphone, please. We have to say exactly the opposite to all the other witnesses. What were your responsibilities as Chief Director? You deal with that in paragraph 24.
In the human settlement.
Yes.
In the human settlement, I had two directorate. I had the technical directorate, which was merely your building inspectors that will inspect the construction of the houses as they were constructed. And then on the other directorate will be the directorate responsible for planning and research.
So the inspectors who went out pursuant to the building contracts and inspected the milestones, did they report to you?
They reported to me via the director that was responsible for them, which was Mr. Kabelo Koloi.
Glory, right. On page 192, you deal with the standard protocols for building RDP houses with the Division of Revenue Act funding, DORA funding. That evidence is a matter of record. We need not detail it any further. But what is your recollection, you deal with it in paragraph 30, of the amount allocated for the 2010-2011 financial year? I'm referring to paragraph 30
Yes,
on
Chair.
page 193.
We were allocated 1.4 billion by the National Fiscal, the National Treasury, via Human Settlement Department.
Yes, most of that was a new allocation, we understand, but part of that was a rollover from the previous financial year.
Yeah, the rollover and the new allocation will be combined to form the amounts.
Yes. And the purpose of that, as we know, was for the construction of low-cost housing in the province.
Correct, Chair.
What is the provincial business plan? You deal with that at paragraph 31 and following.
The provincial business plan is a plan that each province compiles a year before implementation, which talks to the projected allocated amount in terms of the medium-term expenditure framework, which then says this will be our projects, low-cost housing, in terms of several programs that are included in the what you call the housing code.
And in order to compile that business plan, you communicate with the municipalities where these houses will be built on the one hand and the national department on the other.
Correct, Chair. The planning cycle of the of government is such that a municipality must compile an IDP. Within that particular integrated development plan, you have to have a housing sector plan, which is a specific plan that talks to housing matters. That housing sector plan will identify the area of needs, and it will also talk to the special availability of land and the number of people that are looking for housing in the area. Then it will be integrated into the district development plan. The district development plan will also be integrated with other departments at a provincial level, where you produce what we call provincial growth and development strategy, which will also talk to the special development framework of the province. In essence, the documents, the planning documents will then tell you where we should be focusing in terms of delivery of housing, together with other amenities.
Yeah. So at a general level, there is a detailed system and plan that controls the allocation of money for housing projects in a particular province.
Correct.
Let's deal with it at another level. One of the issues of concern in this matter is that monies were not properly spent and there was wasteful and irregular expenditure in the construction of houses. Now, there are various protections built into the system which were ignored in this case, which you will talk about in your evidence. But before payment can be made to a contractor, milestones must be achieved. We've heard that evidence. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What are those milestones?
There's 3 milestones. There's basically the foundation, a milestone, the wall plate, and then the roofing completion milestone.
Now, before the contractor can claim at the completion of any milestone, you've told us that there are inspections. We've heard that there are inspections that must take place and the work must be verified.
Correct, Chair.
And not only is this provided for in the contract itself, but in the housing settlement scheme documentation, am I correct?
I mean,
Housing subsidies.
housing subsidy scheme, which is the system that assists in project management in the Department of Human Settlement, both provincially and nationally.
Yes. Would you just tell the Chair, in paragraph 42 and 43 on page 195, you talk about those inspections which are required by the contract and the housing subsidy scheme. Those events that must take place before payment can be made. Paragraph 42 and 43, particularly 43, the extent to which the inspection must be carried out.
Yes, Chair. Firstly, you will receive a request from the contractor that they have completed the excavations. There will be different activities on a foundation itself. There will be excavations, compactions, and filling of the foundation that should be inspected before a slab is casted, the concrete is casted. After that, after the casting of the foundation, it will be left to cure, and then 7 days to 10 days, they will request that the inspector should come and approve that particular foundation that has been completed and is standing as per the specifications. But then the contractor's engineer will also be there to make sure that if there's any concerns that our inspector, the department raises, is able to can explain.
And if you would go to paragraph 44, if the construction work is then approved, what happens then?
If the construction, the milestone is approved, all the concerned parties, meaning our inspector, the engineer, the contractor's engineer, NHRBC, people inspectors, and the municipal building inspector, they certify the document and give it back to the contractor to go and submit for payment at the department.
And finally, what happens then?
Finally, when it's submitted, it's captured on the system, the HS system, and there will be another system of payment which is called BUS, where information will also be captured on the CFO side so that payment can be generated and then the contractor can be paid.
You refer to the system, is that the BAS system?
Yeah, BAS system,
Right.
BUS.
The point of this evidence is just to illustrate that there is an elaborate system of checks and balances for the proper expenditure of payment for low-cost housing on the one hand, and for the proper construction under supervision of low-cost housing on the other hand. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So if that system is followed, the low-cost housing plans should work.
That's correct, Chair.
Now, clearly we know that that system simply didn't apply in relation to what happened in 2010, 2011. Am I correct?
Yeah, to some extent it didn't apply, Chair.
Well, we can deal with that in your evidence as we go through it. We've dealt with the events of 2010, 2011, which required the issue of a new tender and the commencement of a new procurement process for the appointment of contractors. We needn't go into any detail, although you do deal with it in detail in your statement. The result of this was a new tender process for the appointment of contractors was initiated, and that collapsed, basically. The tender period was exceeded, and it was decided to approve a database of contractors. You recall all that?
I recall that.
But that wouldn't have happened at your level of operation.
Now, that will be a supply chain matter.
But we know that that database included contractors who had been disqualified in the abandoned procurement process for, amongst other things, that they weren't competent to do the work. You recall that?
I recall that because I have a side of the bid evaluation report, the bid evaluation committee report, and also the bid adjudication report.
At the level at which you were dealing with the construction of houses and supervising inspectors, did the appointment of underqualified contractors cause a problem in the construction of houses?
Chair, there will be new entrants into the system. In a normal construction business, you look for those construction companies that have a muscle to can handle the construction. When you look at their bids document, they will tell you the functionality and their financial muscle to can handle the project. But once those requirements are not in existence in the bids documents, you will find it hard for those that get appointed to move at speed.
And the quality of the building that results?
That will also affect the quality of a building, because they will not be having that experience, the gem, to produce quality. Hence, you allocate them 50 or 100 units just to test the waters, and then put an emphasis on your inspectors to say, look after these guys so that they can produce quality in terms of the specs. And if there's any shoddy work, they will be punished for that, because at the end of the day, you'll have to demolish the house and then start afresh.
Let's move on then. Much of the content of your affidavit up to page 201 has already been dealt with in evidence, and we need not deal with it because it's largely consistent with what you say. But if we can go to page 201 of FS 12 and deal with the ERP, or the Expenditure Recovery Plan. We know that the National Department of Human Settlements raised concerns about the level of spending in the Free State Department, correct?
Correct.
And Minister Sexwale issued a notice to the MEC, Mr. Zwane, expressing his concerns.
Correct, Chair.
And the requirement that arose out of that communication was to produce an expenditure recovery plan.
Correct?
And you say in paragraph 64 that that plan was indeed prepared as part of the so-called war room. What was the war room?
The term war room, Chair, you'll hear it in most of the government sectors. When there's trouble, a war room is created. It's where people will sit, monitor the implementation of the decisions that have been taken to ensure that there's constant monitoring and there's constant delivery on the ground. And if there's any problems, you'll raise a hand and say, this is concerning me, can it be attended by the relevant authorities?
The advance payment plan, we've heard that it originated in discussions in the war room at the instance of the former MEC, Mr. Zwane. Is that your recollection?
No, Chair. My recollection is that the advance payment scheme, the war room was a product of the advance payment scheme. Because once that scheme was designed and approved, it needed hands of people that will manage what is contained in the advance payment scheme.
All right. So other witnesses have said that the plan was actually devised as part of the war room, but that's a matter of semantics. There was a meeting at which the devising of the plan was discussed. The creation of the plan was discussed, and you say the war room meetings governed the implementation of the plan and monitored the implementation of the plan. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. The ERP, the Expenditure Recovery Plan, where was that prepared?
The ERP, it was prepared by the senior managers, including MEC's one, in a separate meeting. You mentioned, SC, that a notice from Minister Sokhwale was sent to the office of MEC Zwane. He then called a meeting of all the officials, both in local government and traditional affairs, because you had people who were experienced in terms of the government planning, and those that were controlling the special directorate that controls the approval of special plans, that township establishment plans and the like. And included in that meeting were also the officials from deputy director level in the human settlement up to the chief director level.
Did you take any part in the preparation of that plan? Did you contribute to the preparation of that plan?
Yes, Chair, I took part because my corner as a chief directorate was going to be handling the technical aspects of the construction. So you had to say, look, from where I'm sitting, this is what I will need. If we talk capacity building, if we had to run faster, I will need more runners, more inspectors on the ground in terms of human bodies, warm bodies, and I will also need maybe software gadgets that will assist me when they're outside there to communicate. And the budget linked to that. Because if inspectors go outside Bloemfontein, they will have either to spend the whole week or 2 weeks being on the field.
At a more senior level, and I'm referring to HODs, and I'm referring to the MEC. Who was involved in the preparation of the ERP?
Mr. Mukwena was there. Mr. Tometi was there. The CFO was there, Mr. Ramini, and the MEC's office was there. Also included was the MEC.
And were they responsible for the final compilation of the plan together? You say so in paragraph 64.
Yes, Chair.
Now that ERP is something separate from the advance payment plan, as I understand your view of things.
Yeah, there will be an ERP and there will also be an advance payment scheme.
Right. Were you involved in the development of the advance payment plan?
The advance payment scheme, as you say.
Yes.
APS.
Yes.
No, I was not involved.
We've dealt at some length with the document, which is a slide presentation of the ERP, the Expenditure Recovery Plan, and the cash flow projections section of that plan. You talk about that in paragraph 66. You see that?
Yes, Chair.
Now, that cash flow projection, and I think you've foreshadowed it in your previous answers now, contemplated the normal process taking place, milestone to milestone and payment on milestones. Do I understand it correctly?
Correct.
The consensus so far has been that, well, let me ask you this first. When was that plan compiled and completed, the plan part of it? When was the document finally completed?
The ERP or the ASP?
ERP, the ERP.
The ERP was compiled during October month.
Right. And we know from other witnesses, and you can correct us if this evidence is not correct, that at that stage no houses had been completed in that financial year.
There were houses that were completed on the ground, rolling from the previous financial year.
Yes, but we're talking about this particular allocation.
On this particular allocation, no.
Right, okay. Now, would you agree with the evidence that has been given to date that the cash flow projections were overly ambitious? You weren't going to spend over R1 billion in the final months of the year.
Yeah, Chair, I'll agree and qualify my statement by saying if we're to start in November running, there will be construction holiday in December, which will move up until January. Middle January is when everybody comes back to do construction. So you'll be basically disturbed in terms of your delivery.
Yes. You wouldn't finish by the end of the financial year.
Yeah, you will not finish. You will obviously head for what you call a rollover of the funds to the next financial year.
Well, yes, and you say that was obvious, but what the cash flow projection said was that everything would be complete to the tune of over R1 billion by March.
That was ambitious.
Yes. To put it gently.
Was it ever going to happen?
No, Chair.
It was not going to happen.
It was not going to happen. As I've said, if you begin in November to start chasing construction,
Yes.
you'll be hit by the construction holiday in any way.
Yes.
Suppliers will close, producers of material will be closed. Mostly people want to go and have festive with their kids, especially the low-level employees that
Yes.
will have migrated to come in and work in certain projects.
Yes. Did you say you were part of the preparation of that plan?
Of the ERP, yes,
You were part.
I was part.
You admit that you were all aware that you were misrepresenting the position when you indicated through that plan that by end of the financial year you would have completed the allocation, the houses needed for the allocation.
Chair, yes, we were sitting there and debating, all of us, and if your point was not carrying any sense, those who believe that this can be done will say, no, this can be done. But you'll sit there in a meeting and
Speaking
say,
for yourself, you knew that it could not be done.
yeah, from my experience in terms of construction,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
that was impossible.
Yes. And was there anyone in the room who was participating in that plan who said they genuinely believed it was achievable? Do you remember anyone in the room who participated in preparing that plan who genuinely, or who said they genuinely believed it was achievable?
Chair, because there were so many
Or
of
is
us.
the position that when all is said and done, when you look at everybody, you know that everybody knew that this was not achievable? They may have said whatever they said, but the truth is they knew it was not achievable. Are you able to say that, or are you only able to say that for yourself?
I'm able to say the majority of us will say, with the lack of capacity as a new department, this won't be happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember anyone that may have pushed strongly that as far as he or she was concerned, this was achievable? And if so, who was that?
Chair, because it has been a long time
You can't remember.
when these meetings happen, one cannot clearly recall.
No, that's fine.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, no, that's fine. Yes, Mr. Pretorius.
There must have been present at these meetings, or at this meeting, technical experts, people who understood the requirements of the normal building process, the casting of foundations, the inspections, the walls, the roofing, all the services that had to be provided. There must have been technical experts with a knowledge of whether this was an achievable plan or not.
Yes, Chair. I would say there must have been people with knowledge. But since we're a new department, still struggling to get experts, if I may put it right, the technical experts that we needed were like quantity surveyors, professional engineers, in terms of construction, civil engineers, that will talk to your bulk supply and stuff like that. Those were not in existence in our department. Until such time we received, I think it was a year later, when we received a assistance from the Cuban government in terms of the Cuban exchange program, the Cuban professionals. Then we had architects, we had also engineers, people that can really think thoroughly on technical matters.
You know, this is a technical exercise, Mr. McLachlan. One would have thought, with R1 billion at stake, that at the very least, technical expertise would have been called upon in the preparation of this review plan? It seems to me that it was prepared without any regard to the technical aspects of the matter, and this is a technical matter.
I agree with you with that statement.
Right. You say in paragraph 67, Mr. Matlachwa, that the ERP was presented at the October technical ministerial meeting of the Executive Council. That's the MINMEC, technical MINMEC. Which senior officials would have attended that meeting?
The October meeting will have been attended by myself and Mr. Mokoena, the CFO.
Right. And any other officials of a senior nature from the National Department?
Yes, from the National Department, you'll have the whole senior management and executive management there from the Director General, Mr. Tabane Zulu, with his Chief Operation Officer, Mr. Neville Cheney, the CFO office, and then you'll have their supporting staff.
Did the members of the National Department say anything to the members of the Provincial Department about the viability and legality of the ERP?
At the meeting in October.
Yes.
In October, we were sent back because to go and revise the plan and present what will have been a revised ERP in the November technical MINMEC.
Right. And did the November meeting then take place?
Yes, the November meeting did take place.
You talk about that on page 202.
Yes, Chair.
And was it at that meeting that the advance payment issue was raised?
Yes, I did highlight that meeting, that this is the thinking about spending the money in the Free State.
And what was the response of the meeting to what you said?
The response from those that had an experience, especially guys from Gauteng, were saying, that thing will not work. We have the experience of it.
Right.
That stage, when you said to them this was the thinking in the Free State about advance payments, where had you got that idea from? Had that been discussed in the Free State already?
Yes, it was discussed.
It had already been discussed.
It has already been discussed.
But it was not. It had not been put in writing or in anything like that.
Yes, Chair.
Yes. Okay.
All right. You deal with that in the next paragraph. Perhaps the most straightforward question was, as far as you're concerned, whose idea was the advance payment plan?
It was the idea of the MEC.
And as you say in paragraph 71, by the 18th of November, when this technical MINMEC meeting took place, Mr. Tsoametsi's recommendations or his document, which we've discussed in evidence thus far, had not yet been signed off. That only happened on the 25th of November 2010, correct?
Correct.
At the two meetings, in fact there were three meetings, there was one on the 18th of November, there was one in October, and there was a third meeting on the 19th of November. What was that meeting?
It was the political MINMEC, as we know it, the ministers and the MECs. And then
that meeting, which ministers and which MECs would have attended?
Minister Tokyo Squale was our minister then, and then all the MECs responsible for human settlement or local government, traditional affairs and human settlement, whatever combination you will have in any province.
Yes. Did you attend that meeting, the MINMEC meeting, the political meeting as you call it?
Yes, Chair, I attended it.
What was said there, both about the ERP and about the advance payment plan?
That political min-mac confirmed what was submitted as recommendation from the technical min-mac on the ERP, our ERP.
What was that?
It is summarized in the minutes where the chairperson said, I will recommend that note be taken of the presentation of the Free State, and that the ERP is not convincing enough, and the money will be taken from the Free State.
Okay, so it was rejected, the ERP was rejected.
The ERP was rejected.
And the advance payment plan?
It was not on the ERP itself.
No, I know it was not on the ERP, but was the advance payment plan discussed at the meeting of 19 November?
Yeah, the comments were passed after I've indicated. The comments were passed to say no, that thing is unlawful. It won't work.
So, at the political meeting where the national minister and the MECs were present, held on the 19th of November 2010, two things happened. The ERP plan was rejected, and secondly, the advance payment plan was stated to be illegal and it could not continue.
Yes, Chair.
And did your MEC participate in that discussion?
No, Chair. He had tendered the apology together with the HOD.
He was not, both of them were not there?
Yeah, they were in the NCOP. The NCOP was visiting Free State on those particular dates.
Yes, I may have missed something that I think would have come earlier. I think I saw in your affidavit that you said that when the idea of advance payment was put on the table by MEC Zwane in a meeting in the Free State in the Housing Department, that the reaction of most of the people who attended that meeting was that that would be illegal, advance payment would be illegal. Is that correct?
No, Chair.
No, I misunderstood.
I was talking to the ERP.
Oh, the ERP?
Yes.
Okay, not the advance payment.
Yes. Not the advance payment.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay.
Right. We have evidence on record of various meetings that took place in the Free State and meetings that took place involving the national minister and members from the national department. There are a range of those meetings, but let me put it at a summary level. The details are in the affidavits and in the review application, which was testified to by Mr. Moketsi. In the province, was it made clear to the department, officials in the department and the MEC, that the advanced payment plan was unlawful?
Chair, according to what I've read from the affidavit of Mr. Moketsi, that was told to the MEC.
Right.
In the meeting between, I think it was a private meeting between the minister and the MEC together with the HOD.
Now, we also know from your evidence now that the ERP plan or ERP itself was also rejected.
It was rejected.
And you referred to a meeting of the 19th of November, which was not attended by Mr. Zwane nor by the HOD of the time, Mr. Mokoena.
Yes, Chair.
Would they have received reports of what happened at the meeting? It would seem probable as a matter of common sense, but what do you say about that?
Yes, Chair. As a delegated person to a meeting, you'll immediately, when issues are raised and which are bailing your province, if I may put it in that particular manner, take a phone and call the delegating authority, which is the HOD, to say, HOD, this is what is being said in this particular meeting. The ERP is not accepted. The idea of the payment, advance payment scheme is not accepted. So please inform the higher authority, which is the MEC, because by then one was thinking that both of them are together at the NCOP, which was held in Kwakwa. So they will brief one another in terms of what is to happen. Following that will be the minutes. Those sets of minutes, the technical min-meg and also the min-meg minutes will be transcribed same day and then be sent to all the recipient, the people that should have been in that particular meeting as per the distribution list.
I've just picked up what I had in mind when I asked you the last question that I asked you. It appears in paragraph 83 of your affidavit, but maybe it's something that Mr. Pretorius was still to come to, I'm not sure. But I see there you deal with a certain meeting, but I see that you don't indicate whether you attended the meeting yourself. That was called by Mr. Zwane. It seems to have been on the 29th of October 2010, where he put his plan on the table, his solution in quotes. And you say in paragraph 83, first line, the opinion of the meeting was that such a payment system would be illegal because the HSS policy framework did not provide for advance payments. I think that's what I had in mind. Can you see that?
Yes, Chair, I can see that.
Yes, you did not attend that meeting yourself. You start talking about the meeting in the previous page from paragraph 79. You mention people who were there, but you don't seem to mention yourself.
Yeah, before the meeting of the 29th, Chair, we were called into a meeting by MEC Zwane. Which meeting was alluded to by Mr. Mokoena, where the MEC briefed us about the advance payment scheme.
Yes.
Yes.
So, but this one of the 29th, you did not attend? Or do you not remember?
The technical meeting of the 29th,
Yeah.
I did attend with Mr. Mokoena.
You did attend?
Yes.
Oh, okay. But can you see that you do say in paragraph 83 that the opinion of the meeting was that the prepayment system was illegal? Remember, I asked you the question whether the majority of the people who attended the meeting where Mr. Zwane put on the table, put his proposal on the table, his solution, whether the majority of the people indicated that his solution would be illegal in terms of prepayment. And you said no, you had said that in regard to the ERP.
Yeah, in the meeting before October, where the MEC briefed us about the advance payment system.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, no, I'll come to that just now. I just want to understand what the position is with regard to what was said at this meeting of the 29th of October. You confirm what you say in paragraph 83, namely that the opinion of the meeting was that such a payment system would be illegal. Do you confirm
yes,
that
Chair.
that was the view of the meeting?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, okay. But you understand why I'm coming back to it?
Okay, Chair.
You understand?
I understand.
Because I thought you didn't seem to think that that was what was said, but you are clarifying it that it's true.
Yes,
That was
it's true,
the view of the meeting
Yes.
on the 29th.
Yes.
And in
Not
In the meeting before that you have just
Before
talked
the-
about, was the position the same?
Before the meeting of the 29th,
Yes.
the technical meeting,
Yeah,
there was a meeting of the MEC.
yes.
Yes, where
And that meeting was attended by Mr. Zwane, yourself, Mr. Mkwena, and who else?
Ms. Lamene,
Ms. Lamini?
Mema Miki,
Yes.
Kabelo Koloi,
Yes. There might be one or two that you forget.
Muso Twamechi was also in that
No,
meeting.
Okay, that's fine. You don't have to specify all of them.
Yeah.
Is that the first meeting where Mr. Zwane advanced his solution in quotes for the problem?
Yes, Chair.
Yes. And what was the reaction of those who were present to that proposal of advance payments?
The reaction was that will be illegal because, the milestones doesn't cater for such.
Yes.
Yes.
There is a meeting that Mr. Mukwena spoke about in his evidence yesterday. And I think he said it's the meeting where Mr. Zwane put this proposal on the table for the
It's the same
first
meeting.
time. And he said he was the only one who spoke against this solution and said it would be illegal. He said that everyone else was quiet, and he even went further and said it was as if the other people in the meeting knew about this. Maybe there had been some discussion. The meeting seemed to be just between himself and Mr. Zwane. Would that reflect what the position was? Were a lot of people in the meeting quiet during that meeting?
No, Chair. When you attend a meeting with the MEC, you are expected to contribute.
Yes.
Because whatever decision that will be taken,
Yes.
you'll be required to implement.
Yes.
So you'll have to say your say and say, this is how I see it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But is the position, as you recall, with regard to that meeting, which was prior to the technical meeting, is the position that a lot of people may have kept quiet, but they were associating themselves with the views expressed by Mr. Mukwena, or is your recollection that they were actually vocal? They did express the same views as well, namely, this advance payment would be illegal.
Chair, the people attending that meeting were vocal.
Yes.
Yeah, since they know how the system should work.
Yes.
Yes.
Are you able to say those who were saying this system would be illegal would have been the majority of those who attended, but some agreed with the MEC, or would you say everybody was spoke with one voice that this system of payment would be illegal?
The majority of us in that meeting
Yes.
were not in agreement.
Yes.
Yes, with
okay.
the MEC.
You can't say everybody, but the majority.
Yeah, the majority.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Pretorius.
Chair, we were coming
and maybe-
to the
I'm sorry.
advance payment system.
I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Pretorius. At that meeting, when the majority made it clear to Mr. Zwane that they thought that his solution, in quotes, was illegal, were the reasons why the majority thought his solution was illegal spelled out?
Chair, yes. Considering that we're a new department, if you were to go buy the material at large scale, you'll need, as I've said, you'll need more hands to be able to can keep an eye and control such an exercise. Unlike limiting it to one or two contractors where you say, look, come help us. We are at a deep end. We are advancing you with so much so that you can be able to deliver quicker. I should say, Chair, it was not for the first time that the advanced system was used. Yeah, it was used previously when Free State lost 100 million rands to national fiscals. There were few contractors that were outperforming others that were allocate their money, but they were able to produce the type of units that were required. Even under what we became known as the Hlasela, the department will, in terms of the thinking of Hlasela, they will send their money to public works to be an implementing agent on their money. I remember there were a few priority projects that needed to be run before 2010, where we were required as a department to send our money to the Department of Public Works, and then they start building.
Yes,
from there.
but my question is simply whether you recall whether the grounds on which the majority was saying the advance payments would be illegal were spelled out, were articulated to Mr. Zwane at that meeting. Do you remember whether those were set out? Somebody did say, this is why it would be illegal, A, B, C, D.
Chair, as I'm saying, we're a fairly new department. Capacity was not there. It was a huge concern, yes, of the meeting.
Why were you saying the prepayment, advance payment would be illegal? If you talk for yourself.
Chair, the allocation as per the DORA, Division of Revenue Act, has got conditions that you do this with the money.
Yes.
Yes, these are the targets that must be achieved. Then
The milestones.
the milestones. Then the sector, which is human settlement, will have a system in which the expenditure will flow, which will be the milestone achievement, the 3 milestones. Those milestones will get monitored and get reported every quarter to the national fiscus. Yes.
Did Mr. Zwane say that as far as he was concerned, there was nothing illegal or unlawful about advance payments, or did he not say anything along those lines?
Chair, I cannot recall exactly what he said, but he came with a scheme,
Yes.
the idea, and then we debated it.
Yes.
And he said, this thing will work.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he said it would work.
Yeah, this thing will work. You guys have to put your mind on it. It will work.
Yes.
Yes.
But you don't recall whether he responded to the concept of illegality?
No, no.
You
Chair.
can't remember?
I can't remember.
Yes. Okay, all right.
Well, lest there be any confusion, there was a meeting on the 28th or 29th, you give 2 dates, of October, the October MINMEC technical MINMEC meeting. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Before that meeting, right, there had been a meeting about which you've told the chair at some length of the proposal, the idea formulated by the MEC, presented, and the responses, correct?
Correct.
Was it at that meeting that Mr. Tuametsi was told to go and draft a memorandum?
Yeah, that was the meeting where Mr. Tuametsi was instructed to go and research about the...
Yes, and he came back with the product on the 25th of November, a month later.
Yes, Chair.
And it was that document that we've looked at that doesn't contain any legal advice about its legality, but merely about how it should be implemented.
Yes, Chair.
All right. Then there was the meeting of the 28th of October. You say later 29 October, but it's not material, that the technical MINMEC meeting.
Yes.
And you've said to the chair who attended, what was discussed at that meeting? As I understand your statement, it was the expenditure recovery plan that was discussed at that meeting.
Yes, because there was a concern of the below par expenditure.
Yes,
Chair.
right.
We are required to present a recovery plan
Right.
in order to meet.
Yes. And it was not accepted at that meeting.
It was not accepted. We were told to go and revise it.
Revise it. Then the next meeting, technical MINMEC meeting, took place on the 18th of November.
Yes,
The ERP was presented again at that meeting.
yes.
Is that the ERP that we've looked at?
The
in past?
revised one that is contained in the
Right.
documents.
Was it also rejected at that meeting?
It was also rejected in that meeting.
At that meeting, you also raised the advance payments issue.
Yes,
Right. What was the response of the meeting to the advance payments issue?
it's unlawful. Don't even try it. It's risky.
Right. That took place on the 18th of November. Then on the 25th of November, we get Mr. Tsuometsi's memorandum, which is signed off by Mr. Mokoena.
Yes,
Right. Then there is a MINMEC meeting that takes place on the 19th of November. Now, the MINMEC meeting is what you call the political meeting.
yes,
At that meeting, was the ERP rejected?
yes. It was rejected because the recommendation will have come from the technical minimum.
Right, okay. And the advance payment plan? Was that mentioned at that meeting?
No, it was mentioned in the recommendations of the technical minimum.
All right, okay. And you've told the chair that although Mr. Zwane and Mr. Mokoena did not attend the MINMEC meeting of 19 November, they would have received a report back as to the decisions of that meeting.
Yes, Chair.
Right. And it was at that meeting, as I understand it, was decided to withhold certain monies. Is that correct?
Yes,
In paragraph 77 of your statement, and of course we will deal in more detail with the advance payment system at paragraph 79 and following. Certain of those questions have already been asked of you, but you refer in paragraph 77 to certain correspondence between the National Department of Human Settlements and the Free State Department of Human Settlements. It's a letter dated the 8th of November 2010. That letter appears at page 252. It's a letter addressed to Mr. Tabani Zulu of the National Department by Mr. Mokoena of the Provincial Department. Do you see that?
252 years.
Right? It seems to deal with the expenditure recovery program and seems to talk favorably of the possibility of its implementation. We haven't put that to Mr. Mokoena, but that's something we can deal with later. At paragraph 77, what do you say about that letter? What is the point you're making about that letter?
The point that I was making is that the minister was concerned,
The national minister.
the national minister.
Yeah.
He wrote a notice to MEC's one to say your province is not spending accordingly. Take care of the situation. And tell me, how are you going to take care of the situation?
Right. And the response was the ERP.
The response was the ERP.
The intervention by the National Department and the request to Mr. Zwane to deal with it and specify precisely how expenditure would take place was a letter that appears at page 252. That was the response from Mr. Mokoena.
Yes, Chair.
But as I understand the point you're making here in paragraph 77, correct me if I'm wrong, was that the original concern about underspending the allocation came from the National Department and the Minister in the National Department, Minister Sohale. Correct?
Correct. He will have a side of the financial reports that his office at national level will have presented to him.
Yes. And he said to Mr. Zwane, account to me, please. I want to know what you're going to spend and how it's going to be spent, because it's a matter of concern to me. Correct?
Correct.
And the expenditure recovery plan was in effect the response.
Correct.
All right. If we can go over the page, please, to page 204, and there you deal with the advance payment system. We've heard much evidence about it, but there may be matters you could clarify, corroborate, or even add to the evidence that has been given, and we'll deal with that now. But we won't deal with everything that you've said here. The meeting that took place in October, before the technical MINMEC meeting, you say here, of 29 October, was the meeting at which the plan was presented by Mr. Zwane. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you've spoken about the responses to that plan from various people, including particularly your own response.
Correct.
But is it correct in paragraph 80, where you say during the meeting, the MEC advised those present that he had come up with a plan? Is that your recollection of what happened?
Correct.
In other words, the origins of the plan. Where did this plan originate, as far as you were concerned?
From the MEC.
And he explained then what that plan would involve, and that was essentially buying material for building projects from suppliers and paying for those in advance.
Correct.
And you emphasized that at the stage that the payments would be made, there would be no contractual obligation on the department to pay the building contractor for those materials.
Correct, because the contractors will have, in terms of the contract, the initial contract, they will have to procure the material themselves.
So we've been through this, but just to summarize, the original contract with the contractor specified that that contractor had to purchase the materials, put them in the buildings. That detailed and sophisticated process of checks and balances that you've discussed with the chair and told the chair about, involving expert assessments and the like, and reports, would then be followed, and only then would the materials be paid for, but paid to the contractor. Correct?
Correct.
Without any of those checks and balances being adhered to, payments were now being made to the suppliers.
Correct.
In advance.
Now, given that as you say and other witnesses have said, that the contracts that the department would conclude with the contractors included the obligation of the contractor to buy the material, building material, if I understand correctly. In other words, if it was said that the contractor would be paid 50,000 rand per house or your housing unit, or 72,000 or whatever, that included whatever the contractor would use in terms of money, you would use to buy the material. Is that right, or do I misunderstand something?
That's correct, Chair.
Yes. So when, therefore, Mr. Zwane came with the idea that the department should buy material, building material for the contractors, he in effect was coming up with an idea in terms of which the department was going to pay for something that it did not need to pay for additionally. In other words, the department's payment would have included the building material when they paid the contractors. Now, paying for the material in terms of this proposal was actually not necessary as far as the building material is concerned. Because even if the department didn't pay that money, that would be taken care of as and when the contractor was paid after those milestones had been reached. Or am I confusing you?
No, Chair. I was listening carefully to what you are saying.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
in other words, I just want to, because I haven't had any witness who has come before you, and I haven't had you say this, but maybe because I haven't asked you, I haven't had anybody saying, in terms of this proposal by Mr. Zwane, if the department paid for the building material in the way envisaged in his proposal, then the price that the department was going to pay for the building of a house, each housing unit, would be reduced because it otherwise had included whatever the contractor would have used to buy material. But now it's a duplication.
Let me explain in this way,
Yes.
Chair. A unit cost 55,000
Yeah,
as for a 40 square meter
yes.
house.
Yeah,
That is what we refer to as a quantum
yeah,
amount allocated per unit.
yes,
That quantum is then distributed as per the items. There are items that constitute that particular
yes.
quantum.
To say what's included in.
Yeah, what is included? Labor,
Yeah.
electrification, building material,
Yeah.
plumbing,
Yes.
and so forth.
Yes.
That will comprise the price of 55,000.
Yes, yeah.
Then you take, say for instance, you pay money on milestone 1
Yeah, foundation.
for a foundation, for the material. You will then take, say for instance, milestone 1 was 10,000. You will then take the 10,000 in terms of the material that needs to be procured and paid over to the contractor to procure the material. On the system, If the contractor says, I need, as per the quotation, I need 8,000, you'll pay him 8,000, and then you'll keep the 2,000. So that when he claims finally the foundation milestone, you pay the remainder of 2,000. Yes. So you'll have paid the material,
Yeah.
but there will be a remainder to complete the total amount of that particular milestone.
Yes, but I think my question is whether Mr. Zwane's proposal necessarily meant that the department would pay twice for the material, or whether it didn't mean that in the end, even if his proposal was implemented and the material was bought in terms of his proposal, the department was going to make sure that that is set off somehow when it comes to the contractual amount per house that would have been agreed to with the contractor.
Yeah, the latter statement
Is correct.
is correct.
There was not going to be a duplication in terms of money spent on material.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, all right.
At paragraph 83 and following, you, having described the plan, or having summarized the plan that was presented by Mr. Zwane at the October meeting, you summarize then the response. You've given the evidence, but perhaps we could put this on record. At paragraph 83, you say the opinion of the meeting that's in response to Mr. Zwane's proposal was that such a payment system would be illegal because the housing subsidy scheme policy framework did not provide for advance payments. So there were a number of problems, not only in relation to advance payments and the Division of Revenue Act and other regulatory provisions which you've dealt with. It was also in contravention of the HSS policy, correct?
Correct, Chair.
Because the HSS policy is very detailed about the milestone system.
Correct.
Interestingly, it was sought to deal with that problem by putting another milestone in for advance payments.
Correct, Chair, because the system is owned by the department, and then when you want any changes to be introduced, you send a request. But your request will be interrogated by those that administer the system at head office to say, what do you want to do? This is what you want to do. No, it's not possible, or it's possible.
Yes, well, to describe an advance payment as a milestone having been reached is a bit of a contradiction in terms, is it not?
Yeah, I agree.
A milestone is the achievement of certain progress, whereas an advance payment is exactly the opposite.
Yes.
And you make that point in paragraph 83, which we don't need then to deal with anymore. But Mr. Zwane's response to the criticisms of his plan, you summarize in paragraph 85. What did he say?
Chair, Mr. Zwane said he was advised as per the lawfulness of the scheme.
Did he say it had been used in other provinces?
Yeah, he said it has been used in Gauteng. That's why Musa was commissioned to go and research.
You gave evidence earlier that it hadn't worked in Gauteng.
Yeah, when I was sitting at technical min-make of the 18th November, the Gauteng guys confirmed that you are putting yourself at risk. It hasn't worked.
And did you subsequently share that feedback with Mr. Mokoena and Mr. Zwane by any chance?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, that this is what the Gauteng people say.
Yes, Chair.
Okay.
But in any event, it was at that meeting that Mr. Tsometsi was mandated to go and research and come back with an answer.
Yes, Chair.
And we've dealt with the answer he came back with, and you've annexed it to your statement. We can go over the page to the summary of the advance payment system in paragraph 96. And that fairly summarizes the evidence that you've got in the agreement, in your affidavit rather, and the evidence we've heard from other witnesses. Perhaps you could just read on to record what your summary is in paragraph 96 on page 207.
Yes, Chair. I say on paragraph 96, the advance payment system, therefore, emanated from Mr. Zwane. MEC was designed in detail by Mr. Tsometsi and approved by the HOD of Department of Human Settlement, Mr. Mokoena.
We're going back now because we've dealt at various times with the content of various meetings, but we have the time, and just in case we leave anything out from your statement, perhaps we should deal with the contents of paragraphs 97 and following. In paragraph 97, you say you conveyed the outlines of the proposed advance payment plan proposed by the MEC to the Tech Minmec meeting of October 2010, correct? Did you do that?
My apology, that is in a meeting of November 2010.
Yes, I thought so. So we should change paragraph 97. That was the one on the 18th of November, is that correct?
Yes, that was the one on November 18th.
Right. And it was at that meeting, or in respect of that meeting, that the HOD had tendered his apologies. Mr. Zwane was also not there.
Yes, Chair.
After the meeting, well, at that meeting, you've told the Chair that you were advised that advance payments, as contemplated by the MEC, would be unlawful.
Yes, Chair.
You've also added during the course of your answers that the representatives of the Gauteng department gave a similar warning.
Yes, Chair.
After the meeting, did you speak to Mr. Mokoena?
Yes, Chair. Immediately after the meeting, I called Mr. Mokoena.
Now, you will recall that this meeting is on the 18th of November, and we haven't yet received Mr. Tsometsi's memorandum of the 25th of November.
Yes, Chair.
So what did you tell Mr. Mokoena?
I said to Mr. Mokoena on the phone, the ERP, the revised ERP is not approved. Money is still going to be taken from us. The idea of the advance payment system is also discouraged and unlawful.
And did you say who we should speak to about this?
Come again, Essay?
When you spoke to Mr. Mokoena, what was your expectation as to who Mr. Mokoena would relay your information to?
Yeah, my expectation was that Mr. Mokoena will relay the information to the executing authority, which is the MEC, Mr. Zwane.
In case we are not in, we have not been entirely accurate in our discussions with the witnesses to date on the consequences of the National Department and Treasury's rejection of the expenditure recovery plan. It seems that the National Department of Human Settlements and Treasury weren't, as it were, taken in by the expenditure recovery plan. Is that correct?
Do you mean they didn't buy the idea?
Yes.
Yeah, the National Department didn't buy the idea.
And deducted money anyway.
Yeah, it took 230 million away from us.
Leaving over R1 billion still to be spent.
Yes, Chair.
And I take it no one had told National Treasury that, and we've heard this evidence, that you had a plan B, as it were, the advance payment system.
If I may recall, there was a meeting with the Provincial Treasury.
Now, I'm
Okay.
talking about National Treasury.
No, yes, I'm going to come to that.
I'm sorry.
There was a meeting with the Provincial Treasury where Mr. Mokoena presented the in-monitoring of the expenditure. And in that meeting, usually have, they call him the CEO of Provincial Treasury, but it's the HOD in essence of Provincial Treasury. And because the department was in serious trouble, he then canvassed the HOD of Treasury to say, let's please accompany us to go and see the National Treasury in Pretoria. Meeting was arranged. I was part of that particular meeting with the HOD, the then the CFO, Ms. Debbie Hatton, and from the National Human Settlement, there was an acting treasurer. And then our provincial treasurer, the head of department, to go and talk and report. Mr. Mokoena was to report himself to the National Treasury in terms of what is happening, why the slow expenditure and the like.
Was the proposed solution, the advance payment system, discussed at that meeting?
It was discussed, and the National Treasury said, look, we are not for the idea.
Right, so it was discussed, and were they told that you were going ahead anyway with the plan?
We returned back to the province, and I believe Mr. Mokoena had bilaterals with the MEC. I was not part of that particular.
Well, we know that it was decided to go ahead with the plan nevertheless.
Yes, that is what happened.
Is this a convenient time? We will finish shortly after the lunch adjournment.
Yes, no, that's fine. Let's take the lunch adjournment and we will resume at 2:00. We adjourn.